Hello and welcome to this repair tutorial, and today we're going to look at a Rotel, and the model number is RB-03, and this is classed as a power amplifier. Specifications: continuous power output is 2 times 70 watts into 8 ohm speakers. If the unit is configured for bridge mono mode and a single speaker is connected at 8 ohms, the power output maximum would be 180 watts. But if you connect a 4 ohm speaker, this will increase up to 200 watts. Frequency response is 10 Hz to 100 kHz, and total harmonic distortion is 20 Hz to 20 kHz, 0.03%. Input sensitivity is 1 volt at 33 kiloohms, and then the dimensions of the amplifier: width is 435 by a height of 92 and a depth of 334, and the unit comes in at 7.5 kilograms. Now, this is the fourth or the final in this series of amplifier, which has come from the same customer. So what I will not do is to go into the same level of details as I have in the previous repair tutorials. I have put the links in the description for this video so that you can view them if you wish. So the issue with this amplifier is the same as what we saw previously. It is this brown conductive glue. So the first thing to do is to desolder the electrolytic capacitors, because this power amplifier also required a full recap. Here you can see with the electrolytics removed the extent of this brown glue. Now you could use maybe a heat gun at a modest temperature just to heat up the glue and then use a plastic removal tool to remove it from the circuit board. For myself, I just use flux remover because it contains a solvent which will then soften the glue, and then I can then make the removal very easy. What I would advise you to do, and I've advised this previously in other tutorials, just ensure that you put eye protection on, because if the glue has dried out, it will become very hard, and you don't want it to flick up and maybe cause eye injury. Thankfully in this case, the brown glue was not making contact with any of the protection fuse holders, but do remember that you are looking to not only carry out the work of the removal of the glue, but also to take care of any remedial work that you can do at the same time. So just check the ends of these fuse holders, because sometimes they can become loose, and just take a pair of needle nose pliers and just squeeze the ends just to ensure that you've got good contact. And then here, when we take a look after the glue has been removed, because no metal has been used to remove the glue, there is no marks on the circuit board, and that's very important. Don't use a flat blade screwdriver because you will damage the circuit. And then while the amplifier is having the recap, it's very important as well to check the solder side of the circuit board. And all I'm doing is really two things. I know this amplifier, of course, very well, so I'm just checking for any dry solder joints on any of the areas where they are stress related, for example speaker terminals or input terminals, or maybe some of the larger components. And then I'm also checking at the same time, because on one of the units we had a lot of flux around the driver and power transistors. In this case, on this unit, you don't have that issue. And then here what you can see as well is the left-hand channel. On the left-hand side, near to one of the power transistors, this is where you will clip on your test leads when you are adjusting the bias. And then you can also see just off from the driver transistors, there is a blue preset potentiometer. This is the one that you will use then to make the adjustment so that the value reads 4 millivolts. And that is the current which is flowing through the emitter resistors. And then here we see the same setup on the other channel, and you probably can't make them out, but there is a series of links on the circuit board, and this is where you reconfigure the amplifier to run in bridge mono mode. This amplifier was already configured to operate in that manner. And then here you can see an aerial view, and we can see the brand new Nichicon capacitors have been fitted. And there's not an extensive number of capacitors for this power amplifier, less than 10, but by fitting these high quality components, it just ensures longevity. And as I mentioned in other tutorials, when you remove the older branded Rotel capacitors, if you gave them a shake, you can hear them rattling. And if you put them on your ESR meter, you'll see that the internal resistance is increasing and the value of those capacitors is also decreased. And then here we just take a look from the service manual. So this is the schematic for the left channel, and then I'm pointing out the test point which you saw on the photograph, and also the preset. So you normally leave the unit running probably for about 20 minutes in a stable environment, and then make your adjustment. If, for example, you found that maybe the preset was a little bit dirty, what you can do is just spray it with some deoxit D5 with the amplifier turned off and just rotate the preset backwards and forwards multiple times just to clean off the carbon track. Return it roughly to the position where it was before you made the clean, and then you can then make the adjustment much more precise. It's very important with this amplifier as well, just to check on the rear speaker terminals the DC offset. This amplifier doesn't, for example, have a DC offset protection circuit, and it does not incorporate a speaker protection relay. But for this amplifier, it was just a few millivolts. But if you did have an issue, as I've said on all previous tutorials, you need to look at the early stage of the amplifier. And this is these transistors here, and these are what we call long tail pairs. What you would do in that case is don't make measurements, just simply get two transistors, measure the gain of those transistors with a transistor tester, match them up, replace them, and then you'll find that any DC offset has been eliminated. And it can happen. It can happen just due to component aging, where the gain of the transistors change, and then you get this positive or negative DC offset. And then here in terms of adjustment, what I'm showing you is after the recap, you can see my test leads are connected, and we're a little bit low at 3.79 millivolts. And then here, once we've made the adjustment, absolutely bang on at 4 millivolts. You do have some degree of tolerance, but it's not difficult to get it absolutely spot on. And then what I'll do is I'll just do this also for the right channel, and I'll leave the unit running for a number of hours, and then I'll then come back and then do another recheck and any final adjustment if required. And then here what you can see is the top aerial view of the amplifier. So this now with no brown glue, all the capacitors have been replaced, and also as well the amplifier has a thorough clean. When you remove the circuit board, you'll just find an area where dust just accumulates. This is completely normal. You'll always get dust inside of amplifiers, but this amplifier is coming from a very clean environment, so that means that you don't have any issues maybe with nicotine or anything like that, which just makes the cleaning process much more difficult. And then here we show you the original capacitors. As I said, not a huge number, and you can see the brown glue around the bottoms of those larger Rotel branded capacitors, and then you can also see these smaller capacitors as well. And then the only final thing to do is just to place the power amplifier onto test and just leave it running then for a period of time, here 4 hours. I think to restore all of these power amplifiers and also the CD player and also the preamplifier has been an absolute pleasure on my part as an engineer. And I just know that it's going to give the customer, many, many years of quality listening sound. So if you have any questions or you need any help or advice, by all means email audioamplifierservicing@aol.com, and I'll be more than happy to come back to you and provide any guidance that you may require. So until the next time, I wish you all the best. Cheers and bye-bye.